It began with a single line that cut through the applause, calm, concise, and final: "I'm glad this tour is over. Kirk Franklin, don't call us no more." The words landed like a gavel after a long trial, spoken into a mic at the tour's final night in Detroit and captured on camera within minutes. Fans watched the clip in disbelief as the room went silent, and a question spread across gospel circles: what had driven one of the Clark sisters to make such a public, irreversible declaration? Dorinda Clark Cole didn't arrive in ministry by accident. She carries a legacy, raised in Detroit with the Clark sisters' legacy folding into her voice like sunlight through stained glass. For decades she's been both worshiper and standard-bearer, a woman whose music doubled as ministry, whose stage presence was never mere performance but a spiritual offering. That history made her offhand remark feel less like a rant and more like a boundary being set by a woman who has long known the cost of compromise. The tour that brought them together promised something grand, a celebration of gospel titans on massive stages, a reunion of voices that defined worship across generations. Promo footage showed prayer circles, shared smiles, and standing ovations. But behind the cameras, people say the logistics frayed fast, last-minute schedule changes, shortened set times, and a sense among some artists that the show was increasingly being tuned to a singular brand. Those whispers swelled into private complaints and, eventually, into visible tension that would follow the tour from city to city. The flashpoint, according to those who were there, came on a night when the stakes were highest. In Atlanta, with media, label reps and executives in attendance, Dorinda expected a meaningful slot to minister, a full segment that would honor her legacy. Instead, she was told her time would be shortened at the last minute. Witnesses describe a poised, deliberate Dorinda walking into the production tent, microphone in hand, and saying she would no longer accept being shuffled aside. The exchange was reportedly tense but respectful, not a spectacle, but a boundary. "We're not doing this again," she said. "I've been quiet long enough." After that night, the shift was visible. Dorinda began to pull back, longer dressing room stretches, fewer impromptu backstage moments, and a guardedness that wasn't there before. But she still performed. She still poured out her voice for audiences who came to hear the Clark sisters. That professionalism made her later words, spoken in Detroit, all the more devastating. She didn't lash out in anger. She issued a final, measured statement that felt like a spiritual taking of inventory, ministry or marketing, altar or algorithm. The line she delivered publicly was both accusation and elegy. The reaction was immediate. Clips spread across social platforms, turning a backstage moment into a cultural flashpoint. Fans split. Some praised Dorinda for protecting her peace and refusing to be tokenized. Others worried about the optics, the public airing of a dispute among beloved leaders. Then the industry chatter began. Anonymous insiders, former tour members and veteran backup singers started whispering the same refrain, that the polished tour footage had hidden a pressure cooker behind the scenes, where decisions felt rushed and control often centralized. Those confirmations multiplied the significance of Dorinda's words. This was not merely a one-off grievance, it was a symptom. Kirk Franklin's camp did not immediately wade into the storm. His social feed stayed largely silent for days, punctuated only by generic posts about gratitude and God's goodness. Silence, in this case, spoke, and for many it prompted its own questions. Was there contrition, confusion, or strategy behind that quiet? Fans and critics filled the space with theories, but the undeniable effect was a public conversation about power, respect, and the cost of bringing gospel into an era of stadium-sized productions. But this story is not simply a feud. It is also a mirror held up to an industry at a crossroads. Dorinda's declaration, blunt and unadorned, reopened a debate about what ministry looks like when arenas and branding collide with soul-bearing worship. Veteran artists who once operated behind closed doors found themselves given new permission to speak. Younger singers watched and learned. Conversations about boundaries, creative control, and the dignity of elders began to surface in comment threads, podcasts, and prayer circles. What Dorinda did was remind a generation that legacy is not currency to be leveraged, it is stewardship to be honored. In the weeks after Detroit, the conversation did what all viral moments do, it forced reflection. Some called for reconciliation, private talks, mediated conversations, a return to unity. Others called for systemic changes, clearer contracts, fairer set times, and a renewed commitment to ministry above metrics. What remains certain is that Dorinda's words have changed the ecology of gospel touring. They punctured a narrative that said everything must be polished, and they restored the idea that sometimes speaking up is worship. She didn't explode, she closed a door with dignity. He didn't respond at once, he watched the ripples. The stages will fill again, songs will rise, and audiences will keep seeking the sound of heaven. But for a moment, a beloved voice asked the industry to choose, altar or algorithm. And that is a question no one in gospel can ignore. They didn't just sing on those stages, they wrote a lesson for every artist who comes after. What part of this story hit you hardest? The courage to speak, the silence that followed, or the cost of turning ministry into a machine?